What is canon in The Witcher? Is it just a story told in the book saga by the Polish author named Andrzej Sapkowski? Or is it the game universe? Or maybe a new story from Netflix that reshapes everything we knew about The Witcher? Or maybe a mix of all of the above? The question may seem complicated and worthy of a long discussion, but for our team, the answer is clear, and myself being the narrator, I will tell you guys the team's point of view in this video. Every time we read the comments under the videos on our channel, we come across questions like, where did you get this? This is not in the books. Did you make this story up? This is not canon, etc, etc, etc. No matter how many times we mention in the video where we get the information from, these comments still come up. Obviously, our subscribers are really bothered by this question, so we decided to give an answer to it. We decided to explain our position and made a whole video about it. We do care about your questions in the comments, you know? This is the old Witcher. Before we begin, as always, we would like to thank our patrons for the support. It motivates us to continue developing. Do join their ranks, guys, and we promise more awesome content. Anyway, we invite everyone to hop into the comments right now and describe your thoughts on canon in The Witcher. What does canon mean to you guys? It will be interesting to read your opinions before you watch this video. In the meantime, we will talk about our thoughts on the much discussed Mr. Canon, so to speak. Let us start with the main idea of this video. Yes, for us, the quote-unquote canon in The Witcher includes both the books and the games of the Witcher series. We also consider the stories told by CD Projekt Red, for example, in the Gwent trading card game, to be canon. You might ask, why does it happen that not only the books count as canon? And we will answer that there are several reasons for that. First, the most obvious one. CD Projekt Red Studio bought the rights to use the Witcher universe from Andrzej Sapkowski, and they did it more than once, because at some point, the author of the original saga wanted more money, much more money. You might ask, what about the Witcher show by Netflix? After all, the rights were purchased by them as well, and everything is completely legal. Well, the answer to that question lies further in the video. The second and main reason why the story created by CD Projekt Red is clearly canon is the attitude towards the source material. CD Projekt Red has a real affection for the original Witcher saga. The book story is loved in the series games, and it shows. Every now and then the player runs into references to the events of the books. Nothing from Geralt's past is twisted. The games look real and true and are a great continuation of the books. The plot is gripping, and the characters that could only be imagined on the pages come to life as they should be, at least personality-wise. The games of the Witcher series treat the lore of the universe very carefully, taking into account its details and only then carefully weaving into the lore the stories that the developers themselves have come up with. In fact, the games are very logical, and from our subjective point of view, correct continuation of the book's story. The characters of the book are conveyed as subtly as possible. The places are recreated with incredible accuracy. Love for the original is evident in every minute of the Witcher trilogy. The same goes for CD Projekt Red's Witcher board games and even the comic books. Well, not all of them, but that's a topic for a separate video we have in the works. The author of the original book saga, Andrzej Sapkowski, is no longer willing or able to develop his universe. A universe that is incredibly exciting and has unlimited potential. And the CD Projekt Red staff continue to create fascinating stories that you don't want to take your eyes off of, and they almost never contradict the original. Why almost? Because sometimes there still are weird things. For example, in one of the previous videos, we told you guys about the new adventure story of Regis and Detlef by the CD Projekt Red writers. Feel free to watch that video if you haven't seen that. Likes and comments are welcome. Anyways, there is no telling when it takes place. The weather looks like winter, but Regis was almost killed by Vilgefortz in winter. According to the dialogue, we are in the timeline right after the Battle of Brenna, a few months after the events with Vilgefortz. But in the Witcher 3 game, Regis says that Detlef took care of him for at least a year, and that it was only after that year that Regis was able to at least move on his own and help himself around after the injuries Vilgefortz inflicted on him. The time discrepancy is there, and it's an obvious screw-up. But otherwise, the story is beautifully presented. For our team, we have a simple rule. If there is a moment in the games that contradicts a moment in the books, we simply ignore it and use the book version in the story, because the book is the basis, and the game complements and develops that basis, but should not contradict it in any way. Only in this case, the story becomes harmonious and beautiful. Fortunately, there are very few of those moments. So usually we don't have to use that rule. but it has to be there. Some things are plainly ignored. For example, the not quite logical resurrection of Regis in the Blood and Wine expansion for the third Witcher game, which kind of leaves a bunch of questions unanswered, like, where was the vampire all this time? Why didn't he contact Geralt earlier? How did he survive? How did Detlef find him? Etc. Why are we willing to ignore these logical questions? It is simple. The love and accuracy with which Regis' character was conveyed in this very expansion leaves us no other choice. We're just grateful to the Reds for bringing Regis into the game and for what this character is like in the game. Ditto for some other things. That's right, and in the future we can always get answers to all these questions and add to the lore to make everything generally ironclad. After all, even this quote-unquote resurrection does not directly contradict the original, unlike the show, which has never heard of Canon. Now we come to Lauren Hissrich's creation. And here the situation is exactly the opposite of the books. Yes, Netflix also bought the rights to the Witcher franchise from Andrzej Sapkowski, and basically the company can do whatever it wants with this franchise. And here we see the colossal difference that prevents me and the channel's team from taking Netflix's story seriously, or at least positively. Unfortunately, Netflix just didn't give a crap about any book source. The whole story portrayed in the show is completely independent and has nothing to do with The Witcher by Andrzej Sapkowski. There is no careful treatment of the source material in the show. There are no characters described in the books, only their parodies. That is, I'm not talking about appearance. That can be anything. I'm talking about character decisions and actions that define any personality. Just compare Kaer Morhen in the show and in the game. In the first case, we have a brothel with a bunch of weird witchers. In the second case, we have a hermitage with only a few surviving witchers and Vesemir, who carries everything on his shoulders and remains the last hope of witchcraft. Compare the characters. The same Vesemir, who in the series is presented as an old man who is almost out of his mind, fanatically craving to bring back the witchers and resume their creation. In the game, Vesemir is just like in the books, kind but strict, an experienced witcher who is ready for self-sacrifice. A strong character with his own drama, he reveals himself best in the climax, sacrificing his life to save Ciri. In the show, we have a character who tries to kill Ciri, stabs her with a knife, and tries to pump her full of mutagens. That was weak and ridiculous. While in the game, we have a real hero, a strong character who is willing to stand up to an entire army for the sake of his student. This is also the answer to why Netflix's The Witcher has nothing to do with the word canon, simply because it's a completely different story that is unrelated to the original, which doesn't just make some changes to the original because of the movie format. Netflix's The Witcher feels like it's mocking the fans, ripping apart a whole picture of a beautiful world and beautiful characters, and sewing it back together in a completely opposite order with white threads on top of that. If you want to hear about this abuse in more detail, we have several videos covering different seasons of the show at once. Go ahead and watch them, liking, subscribing if you haven't done so yet, all those things. And we'll keep going. I've said almost everything I wanted to say and tried to convey our position on the canon in the books, games, and the show about the Witcher Geralt as accurately as possible. Do you guys agree with our position, our point of view, or not? Write it in the comments. However, we would like to end this video with the key person around whom the whole quote-unquote canon controversy centered, Pan Andrzej Sapkowski. All those years after the Witcher games came out, he would not acknowledge them for some reason. He said that they had little to do with his story and so on and so forth. That is partly why and how the hardcore part of the audience was formed, the people who don't know anything about the universe except the books. It is actually great that people like this still exist. They, just like the book saga itself, are the base of the fans that the entire Witcher universe is built upon. That is because a universe without fans makes no sense. But with this video, we would like to address them. Guys, do try to accept the game universe of The Witcher. It complements the original perfectly and gives a lot of positive emotions. Back to Sapkowski. It seems that for him, it's all about money. When he sees his universe being massacred by Netflix, he just doesn't react in any way. There is no consistency. That means there is no clear position. There are only conditions in which the author keeps changing his attitude towards his brainchild. So we can only thank Pan Andrzej once again for the wonderful saga of Geralt, but nothing more. It is good that we have CD Projekt Red now, and the Witcher universe has a future thanks to the polished developers. What do you guys think about canon in The Witcher? Do you guys agree with us or not? Please feel free to comment your answers. It will be interesting to read opinions whether they go along with ours or not. Of course, if you enjoyed this video, hit the bell and subscribe to the channel. We promise regular and hopefully interesting content, continuing to bring new stories from CD Projekt Red to our channel. Thanks to everyone who watched this video to the end, and see you soon when the old Witcher speaks once more.